It's EASD TV, and you're very welcome. And the sky's the limit. Now, if that sounds a bit cryptic, it's because this particular session was about flying. Flying? What's that got to do with diabetes? Well, there have always been concerns, rumours perhaps, that insulin pumps don't work as well in the air. Well, we had a session in which that was taken on board and discussed thoroughly. So let me introduce you to the people who were involved in that session. David Russell-Jones from the University of Surrey, Julia Marder from the University of Graz in Austria, and Bruce King from the University of Newcastle, not the Newcastle that those of you in the UK will be familiar with as Geordieland, but Newcastle in Australia. So let's start with you, David. Why were these rumours, and why did you then go and investigate?
Well, Bruce did an original study suggesting that insulin pumps over-delivered insulin going up on ascent and under-delivering coming down. He did the original studies many years ago, and what we have done, we formalized it by doing a much larger study in the largest hyperbaric chamber in Europe, and have presented the results this week.
Let me go back then to Bruce, the original. Why did you originally start to have a look at this?
Because I had a 4-year-old girl who was travelling, doing an hour flight every week, and was having hypoglycemia every time she landed while she was waiting at the airport carousel. And after that, she was going high for about 4 hours afterwards. So it happened that that person's mother was our diabetes educator, and her father was a underwater construction expert and had access to hyperbaric chambers. It's handy. How often do you have that? Dad's got a hyperbaric chamber.
And you were interested in bubbles. Tell me a bit more about bubbles.
So what we found when we did the studies was that as the pressure decreased, air came out of solution and formed bubbles in the insulin cartridges, and the bubbles displace insulin into the person. And then when the pressure increases again, the bubbles get reabsorbed, and that stops the delivery. So, and that explains everything our young lady's experienced in her flights all those years ago. Yes.
So you knew of this work, David, and you took on the challenge, and the manufacturers let you have how many pumps? Something like...
We did it in collaboration with all the manufacturers, and we were able to do this because Julia, to our left here, won a very large European Horizon Grant programme, of which we are part of, and which allowed us to use the hyperbaric chamber. And we've done this with the collaboration of all the different manufacturers to set the scene and to answer the question once and for all.
And the answer was?
The answer is that there is a small amount of insulin that is delivered in excess of what the pump is designed to do, roughly about 0.6 of a unit when you get up to cruise altitude, and on the way down you get roughly half a unit less. We then were concerned that this might have clinical implications, particularly to the pilots who are flying, and Europe is leading the way, allowing people who are insulin treated to do a safety critical occupation, i.e. being a commercial pilot. So we looked at all of the pilots on pumps versus non-pumps, and we found their profiles were not different. So for adults, we think this is not a major problem, but it's something that we have defined and characterized.
So for people living with diabetes, I mean, many will, take holiday flights or work flights. They really don't need to be concerned about this.
Well, they just need to be aware that they will have a little bit more, half a unit more on ascent and half a unit less on descent. Now, for an adult, that probably is not a major issue, but for pediatrics, and Bruce is a pediatrician, it probably has much more relevance.
We've come up with recommendations that the average person can use on it. They're very easy so that they can prevent this. So all they really have to do is disconnect the pump before they take off and reconnect 20 minutes after takeoff. And then when they land, they just prime a little bit of insulin take the pump off, prime a little bit of insulin, and then reconnect.
Of course, that's not always possible, is it? Because some people can't disconnect their pumps. Some Omnipods, for instance, you can't disconnect. But let me come to Julia now, because now there's something about where you work that is significant in this story. And that's because Austria, like the UK and Ireland, has a particular thing. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so in those 3 countries that you mentioned within Europe, it is allowed for pilots who do have diabetes to remain pilots, because that is in other countries currently not approved by the European Aviation Association, and that is of course a problem if you become have the diagnosis of diabetes and then you need to stop your career. And so within those 3 countries you can remain a pilot even if you have diabetes, under strict control and strict regulations, of course.
Now tell me about this Wider Horizon grant that you have.
Yeah, so that project, here we aim to really look into more detail how we can optimize the handling of diabetes for pilots and also air traffic controllers with diabetes. And we also, of course, want to onboard more countries that they still can remain pilots even if they do have the diagnosis of diabetes. And the aim is, at present, you need to do finger prick measurements and you need to stop your automated insulin delivery once you are on flight. So we want to really make lives easier for pilots with diabetes and ATCOs with diabetes so that they can make use of the most modern technology nowadays. And with our study program, we hope to fulfill the criteria so that the EASA changes their regulation.
Now, there was one situation where there was massive over-delivery of insulin, and that was if a door blew off and you got massive decompression. But I suspect you'd be worried about more than reaching for your jelly babies that situation.
Well, if you have an emergency decompression, you go from 8,000 feet, which is what most aircraft are pressurized to 40,000 feet in a couple of seconds if a window blew out, or you will get an over delivery. We think of around about 6-7 units. And you just need to be aware of that. And if you survive and the airplane's all right, you then will need to take action. But I think that, as I said, overall, it's the least of your worries.
Indeed, indeed.
So with that, all they've got to do is eat something within 20 minutes. And as far as your comment about the Omnipod, then there are things you can do. So if you know that you're going to go up in a plane, you just have a snack when you reach, a small snack when you reach the 20-minute point, and then when you land you have something small to eat and give yourself insulin for it. So easy.
It's all sorted. It's all sorted. Well, thank you so much for all of that. And actually, it settles a long-running kind of undercurrent of rumour that has, percolated through the diabetes community about this.
People can fly safely, and there's a few simple steps they can take to make their flights very comfortable.
You heard it from Bruce. It's fine. Thank you very much. We'll see you very shortly on EASD TV.